controls and the structure and their policies, that I believe something can be done about it, and the average person can do something about it. And I have a few suggestions, and like, for one thing, if you're a government, like for example, we know that in Belgium, the prosecution is asking for an approval to go ahead and prosecute on some very serious crimes based on a 10-year investigation. Yeah. And many other countries in Europe are looking into crimes by organized Scientology. And my suggestion to them is, whether it has to do with medical practice without a license, or just false imprisonment, or all the many other myriad of horrible things that are done under the name of their ecclesiastical policy, realize that what they're really dealing with is an international foreign criminal organization that truly controls it. It's one thing, you're going to bust some poor guy in Belgium or Germany, Hamburg, wherever, for doing some abusive act to somebody else locally, is fair enough. But there's just going to be another guy there doing it next year if you don't get to the root of what is behind those abuses. And what's behind those abuses are organized Scientology and their interpretation of Hubbard policies to oppress and suppress people that are, that they view to be enemies, which is a very large part of the population. So one, I believe that they should take their investigations beyond, just the local scene and realize that they've got to deal with the international organization. Two, I found out by a government representative in Germany, Ursula, actually a wonderful person over in Hamburg, that the State Department is on their case all the time about, why are you harassing Scientology? What has Scientology done wrong? And the State Department representatives have no idea what Scientology's done that's wrong, yet Ursula has to live with it. Yeah. Well, she made a suggestion which I really support, and that is, if everyone in the U.S., for example, and you could do this in any country, but if everyone in the U.S. who has been abused, and in particular, let's say you've had family ripped apart or children taken away from mothers or fathers or vice versa, whatever, by organized Scientology, write a one-page simple letter to your congressional or senatorial representative letting them know this is what really is the case. Don't embellish it. Don't lie. Just tell the truth. Yeah. And through the Senate and through the Congress, they will often communicate to other departments like the IRS, the State Department, the whatever, and that is how you can get information known and spread about in government circles in a way that will impinge. And really, the beauty of this is people are just trying to get out the truth. Now, the other thing, which is absolutely amazing to me, is I've been reading a lot of legal documents and court cases that Scientology has filed where they're using their IRS exemption recognition from 1993.
That's a 501c3.
Oh, that's a whole nother...
Oh, that's another thing,
about
okay.
5 shows right there, Tom, just talking on that one.
All right.
But they use that, for example, to say, the IRS has done the most extensive investigation that they've ever done on anyone, and this proves that we're all beautiful and wonderful, and our corporate integrity is perfect and all this stuff. It doesn't prove... They've used it in cases like Wallersheim's cases and that, where they said the IRS has shown that our corporations are separate and they don't run each other and all that stuff through this extensive investigation. Well, in fact, it has not shown anything like that. For one thing, how they got their exemption, it is up to investigation, but there's nothing in the rules about exemption about one corporation controlling the other. If they were both considered exempt, for example, then they're exempt. It doesn't matter who controls it. So it doesn't prove who controls anything, whatever they got from the IRS. Secondly, I think it proves the opposite. I mean, look at it. Within days of meeting with the IRS, they could put up a tax compliance committee made up of Miscavige and 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 top Sea Org members who could control all the audits and financial representations for hundreds of organizations, maybe 120 or however many organizations. Well, wait a minute. Now they can also speak for the 120 organizations immediately? I mean, doesn't that tend to imply that they do have a legal control over those organizations? Yeah. So what's funny is the very thing they use to try and say, to confuse people and say, this proves that we're separate and we're distinct, and there's no liability running up the lines from one corporation to another. Actually, it proves the opposite. It's mind-boggling how boldly and blatantly they'll lie about something.
Yeah, and the thing is, most people assume good faith, and particularly with a religious organization, they're going to assume that they have some kind of public interest at heart, or at least some good intention there, overall good intention. But what we're seeing here from this group is there's a facade on the outside that uses celebrities and religious cloaking, but on the inside, it seems to be running itself like a unscrupulous business.
Well, yeah, and I would agree with that. And it's not only with respect to who they consider enemies, but it's their own people. I mean, look, I've seen it, and people have testified to this since I've been in there. But they'll take every dime they can from all the local organizations they control, which includes Narcanons and education groups and Scientology churches and missions, and they'll take 90% of all their revenues if they could. And I know I set up, part of the corporate evolution was to set up trust, like a films trust, to pull out 5 or 10% of a quote-unquote church's weekly revenues to pay for the films that they got. But whatever it was, there was always some significance because Hubbard believed that the local organizations could not be trusted with not spending all the money, so international management had to take it from them. And when I presented the corporate solutions to Miscavige for approval, at the time period where he said he was not involved with it at all, and in fact he did approve it, he had to be the final approval. When I presented it to him, most of his questions were on how could he continue to control it? How can we take mostly all of their money? And so my point in saying this is that it isn't just their quote-unquote enemies that get mistreated or abused. It's their own people, because many of the people on their own staffs, they're getting what? Nothing, $5 a week, $30 a week. They have children. They can't clothe their children properly. They're not fed properly. They don't have a medical program. They have no retirement program. It's absolute hell. There are people that have been 30 years plus in their C organization who right now are in penal camps and are about to be released into the world with no health program, no retirement program, nothing, no other skills, and they could care less.
Yeah.
And so I don't know anybody who isn't as a public, who isn't ultimately hurt by these people.
Yeah, there's actually the staff members often have to work second jobs, and they struggling to make ends meet there because they're not getting paid very much because the money is being evidently, as you say, siphoned off, and these people are really struggling just to get by. They work long hours. They're subject to all kinds of rather unusual, let's just say rather unusual penalties, to be polite, and it's kind of a bad deal after they decide to leave, or in some cases they have a contract if they're a regular staff member. Then they don't really have any savings, anything really put aside, because you really can't. Well, you have to work a second job just to pay your rent. Usually the rent. They usually don't own a house. Pay the rent and food and things like that. And if they have kids, and then they have to. I mean, it's quite a burden on somebody, and there's nothing that they really get for it.
Well, and I agree, and it's just a sad thing. So that's why I was saying, like the things that could be done is if you've got a story, write it, send it to your congressional reps. If you've been beaten by this guy, let me tell you something. I have been informed by a major reporter that within 2 weeks of today, major national press is ready to release details of Miscavige's beatings of people. If just 2 more people besides myself will come forward and go on the record. That's how close it is. That's how 1 or 2 other persons who simply just tells the truth and lets their name be known can start letting the world know what this guy really is like and what he's really doing. And at no point are any lies or embellishments wanted or called for. It's that close. There's so much we could do right now. There's the FactNet questionnaire. There's 140-some questions that are asking many, many